All right, calling this meeting to order. Victor, will you call the roll?
This is the meeting of the Education Outreach and Training Committee of the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force for April 18th, 2017. The first item on the agenda is the call of the roll. Member Eldon.
Present.
Eldon present. Member Fisher.
Present.
Fisher present. Chair Wolf.
Present.
Wolf present. We have a quorum. There are no agenda changes that I know of today. Next on the agenda, item number 2, adoption of the minutes from the February 21st, 2017 Education Outreach and Training Committee meeting.
Is there a motion to adopt the minutes?
I'll motion to adopt
Second.
the minutes.
So moved. Public comment? Seeing no public comment, will you call the vote?
On the motion to adopt the minutes, Member Eldon.
Aye.
Eldon, aye. Member Fisher.
Aye.
Fisher, aye. Chair Wolf.
Aye.
Wolf, aye. The minutes are adopted. Next on the agenda is item number 3, public comment. Members of the public may address the Education Outreach and Training Committee on matters that are within the committee jurisdiction but not on today's agenda.
Hi there. I just want to read this public comment. For the past 5 years, I've been slandered and personally attacked by Kate Patterson of the Arts Commission at Sunshine Hearings. She never provides evidence to support her claims, and when I ask for this evidence, her response is, I don't have to give anything. The city attorney's office said so. She never gives an inventory of the documents that I asked for, and she claims she doesn't have to turn over the documents, even in a redacted form. I've never stalked, harassed, or threatened any staff member or commissioner of the San Francisco Arts Commission. There are no ongoing investigation or police reports. There never were any. I find this unbelievable that Kay Patterson can continue to slander me at public hearings with no evidence and is not required to turn over documents to support her claims. I wasn't at the last full Sunshine Task Force meeting, but I listened to the audio, and it was very evident every time she was going to lie, she would stop and laugh. She just, went on her typical rant, and I feel it really needs to stop. So here's my public comment.
We already have it. Thank you. She submitted it prior to the meeting.
Okay. Anyone else? Seeing none?
Really?
There being no further public comment, I will move on to the next item. Next on the agenda is item number 4, file number 14047, hearing on the status of the order of determination complaint filed by Thomas Peel against Supervisor Katie Tang, Board of Supervisors, for violating Administrative Code Section 67.21C and 67.25A by failing to respond to an immediate disclosure request in a timely and/or complete manner. On January 7, 2015, the task force referred the matter to the Education Outreach and Training Committee to discuss policies and procedures regarding processing public records requests and email retention and searchability. I have been informed by the complainant that he is no longer interested in pursuing this issue. And I believe that Supervisor Katie Tang's office has submitted written documentation as to their office procedures, which is in the packet.
Great. And is anyone from Supervisor Tang's office here today? All right. And does anyone have any thoughts on this item from amongst the committee?
Nobody's here. So,
Be transparent, show your records. Next.
I mean, I think that this item originated around concerns that received faxes were not being recognized, and they have submitted a memo saying that they've taken care of that problem. So I think that there really isn't anything more to examine here, unless I hear otherwise from either my colleagues or the public.
Yes, and just so the committee understands, I did try to contact Mr. Peel prior to this meeting to see if there were any additional concerns, and he did not respond to me prior to the actual scheduling. So we were trying to resolve this matter before this, but it ended up on the agenda before we received resolution.
Right. Is there a motion?
I believe the possible motion would define that that the order of determination has been complied with and to conclude the matter.
I motion that we recognize that the order has been complied with, and I've just ended a sentence with a preposition, and that we conclude the matter.
I'll second that.
Slapping me from heaven. Sorry.
Public comment?
There being no public comment on that motion, Member Eldon. Aye. Eldon, aye. Member Fisher.
Aye.
Fisher, aye. Chair Wolf.
Aye.
Wolf, aye. The motion passes. Next on the agenda is item number 5, file number 17009, complaint filed by William Clark against Tom DeCagney and the Arts Commission for allegedly violating Administrative Code Section 67.5 and 67.7 by failing to comply with regulations for policy bodies and posting agendas for the community working group for the Arts Commission.
All right. So is someone, I see Mr. Clark's here. Is someone from the Arts Commission here today? Yeah. Great. Let's go ahead and start with the complainant. If you can approach the...
Do you want to do a determination of jurisdiction first?
Thank you.
It's your choice. We can get into it before we decide that.
Motion for jurisdiction?
Is there a second to that motion for jurisdiction?
Mr. Eldon?
All right. By acclamation?
Public comment?
Oh, public comment on the motion of jurisdiction?
It's a city department. Hearing none.
Hearing none. By acclamation?
The motion is passed. Thank you.
Mr. Clark?
Hello, task
give me
force.
1 second.
Give me 1 moment. I assume my assumption is that you would like to provide 3 minutes at this time.
Yes, 3 minutes to each side. Mr. Clark, you may go ahead.
Okay, what this is all about is about whether the community working arts group that was created by the San Francisco Arts Commission is a policy body, and the Sunshine Ordinance states that a policy body in 67.3 subsection D4 says that a policy body is any advisory board, commission, committee, or other body created by the initiative of a policy body. And obviously the Arts Commission is a policy body. And this committee, this body, community body, was created as a result of the hiring of Kate Faust to try and bring all the Arts Commission's programs into alignment with the Arts Commission's strategic plan for, I believe it's 2014 through 19. And they're claiming that this is not a policy body, and I'm stating it is a policy body. And I have several items of evidence I would like to present because I didn't get notice of this until Friday. And to Rebecca Krell from Kate Faust, scoping memo, Street Arts Program Evaluation, January 27, 2014. She states that the evaluation is motivated by the San Francisco Arts Commission's desire to capture the impact of the Street Arts program and identify strategies to improve program alignment with the agency's 2014-2019 strategic plan. In another email dated October 24th, 2014, from Ms. Faust, who was hired by the Arts Commission to do this evaluation, she states, "I would love the opportunity to support the San Francisco Arts Commission with implementing the new strategic plan. I would love the opportunity to apply my professional experience and skills to evaluate the rules and regulations that currently govern the Street Arts program and develop legally, administratively, and politically feasible recommendations on how the San Francisco Arts Commission can align the program with the agency goals outlined in the strategic plan." On an immediate disclosure request to me from Howard Lazar, he states in it, at the March 11th, 2015 Street Arts Committee meeting, he stated under the director's report that consultant Kate Faust is evaluating the Street Arts program in conjunction. Oh, wow, that was fast. Is that it?
Do you need another 30 seconds or so?
Yes, I do.
Victor,
And basically, okay, this says that it was developed in connection. Kate Faust was hired in connection with that. The working group came out of Kate Faust's report to the Arts Commission called the Working Plan. The Working Plan was approved by the Arts Commission in resolution number 0307-16079 on March 7/16. That created the community working group. And Ms. Chow, so I have an email here from Ms. Chow that stated that the community working group is not just to be composed of street artists, but to be composed of other community members at each time when it's deemed necessary to try and get these new rules and regulations implemented. And I believe that is in, and I've got here it is right here. She says, these 8 artists will participate in meetings with other community representatives and representatives of other city departments at critical decision-making junction connected to the desirables. And then she closes by saying it's not a working. I have numerous evidence.
Right. So given that this is just a sort of meeting to look at your case before referring it to the full task force, you will have time to enter additional evidence for the entire task force to review.
Yes, I would. I have a lot of it here. One.
Right. Well, we can dig into all of it when we reconvene as the full task force. We'll go ahead and hear from the other side and then ask you any questions we might have.
Okay.
Thank you. And then if we can give you 3.5 minutes to make things...
4 minutes. I can't do half seconds.
Oh,
or
half minutes. All right, so 4 minutes it is then.
Sure, thank you. Kate Patterson, Director of Communications, the San Francisco Arts Commission. I'll be brief. I think that what we provided you in the letter is a very clear statement regarding our position. I just want to clarify a few points. Number one is that Kate Faust, the woman who was just mentioned in the previous testimony, was hired to do an evaluative study of the street artist program, and part of her feasibility report recommended that the staff create an advisory group of street artists, participants in the program, and that group is called the Community Working Group. The function of the community working group is to meet and to discuss various ideas related to that evaluative report that are centered around different efficiencies that could be applied to the program, and essentially finding ways in which the program could be better aligned with the strategic plan. The function of this working group is to provide feedback to staff. There are no commissioners who serve on this committee. It does not meet at City Hall. It is just, for all intents and purposes, a focus group for staff to discuss ideas related to the program. That feedback is given to staff, whose responsibility then is to present any policy changes to the subcommittee, the Street Artist Subcommittee, to then forward to the full commission for ratification. So this body, this focus group, shall we say, is absolutely not a policy body. It's an advisory committee. It does not propose policy, and therefore there's no violation here. So yeah, that's basically, again, I think everything we stated very clearly in our letter. I'd have nothing that much more to add.
Great. Just a quick question while you're up there.
Sure.
Great. How are participants chosen to to serve on this working group?
I'm going to ask my colleague Ann Trickey to help me with this question, but I believe there was a survey that went out, or there was a questionnaire that went out to get participants.
So the participants were chosen by one of our staff members, Antang Dao Shah, who is the senior policy analyst on staff. She's currently out on maternity leave. So in her absence, the working group continues, but the decision on who would be on and sit on the working group was initially done by An. And I think it was through when Kate Faust did her report, she surveyed artists and got feedback from the community in general. And so I think there were some artists who wanted to be able to provide more feedback in a more direct kind of conversation with staff. And so from that group, they created the working group. And it's actually very specifically identified. We have diverse artists, we have different language speakers, we have different people that sell in different locations, we have different crafts. All of that was taken into consideration with creation of the group.
And they're volunteers. They're voluntarily serving on it.
Sure. So I understand that your colleague is on maternity leave, and she was the one that that sort of put this together originally. But hopefully, by the time we meet back with the full task force, whether she's still on maternity leave or not, you can find out two things about that process. One, whether there was like a call out for people to serve on this, and if so, was there anyone that said that they wanted to and was not invited to participate in the working group, and if so, how come? So basically, really wanting to know how this population was identified and who was either reached out to or invited in, and really how that determination was made.
So I don't want to say for certain, but I know there was a general call to artists, and then there were folks that said they wanted to participate or not. They also have, with some artists that have not been able to participate, we've had, absentees or areas for people to be invited. So when that happened, there were artists identified by the artists themselves that they thought would be good fits for the working group.
Sure. I guess so. Very specifically, if there was anyone that responded to the call out and then was not allowed to participate in the working group.
Sure, we'll get that more clarity on that. Sure.
Thanks.
That's kind of what my question is. So, I mean, I've worked with working groups like this before, where maybe you have an audience of I don't know how many street artists are 600. Am I coming up with a number now?
Of currently licensed artists, we have about 240.
Okay, so you got 240, and this working group comprises 12, 14, 16?
More like 6.
Okay, so I get that. I guess my
6 to 8.
Right. So my general question is, if somebody were to find out when this meeting was and when it's being held, is it a completely closed meeting and the door is shut and these are the only people that are allowed to be here?
So we've sent out invitations to people specifically who are willing to enter into
just yes or no. If I showed up as a member of the public or an interested artist,
it's not a public meeting, so no.
Okay, so it's not a public meeting. It's not a public meeting.
Correct.
Okay. Well, Okay.
It's not a public meeting because it wasn't created by a policy body, just like a staff meeting isn't a public meeting.
Right.
This is technically a staff meeting of the Street Artist Program.
Yeah, I think, this will all come out, but I think that's what it is. I don't like it, but, we're just here for the sunshine rules, and I don't really see them breaking it, but you got one? Yeah.
Any other questions?
So, it's not very nice, but they're within their bounds, so that's all I've got.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
So, you'll excuse me for stumbling a little bit on this question because I'm not interested in why you want the information, but I am interested in what information you are seeking to obtain, and in terms of this working group and what you have done to get that information.
Well, we've all tried to get them to have open public meetings, and they refuse to give meetings minutes. And they personally invited only certain people to answer your question. I'm not here to get information. I'm here to state that they've passed rules and regulations that they don't. I'm asserting were never voted on by the full Arts Commission, and this working group was initiated by the Arts Commission. The Arts Commission instructed the staff to pick the members of the working group, and as I stated before, it's not limited to street artists. The plan is to allow other community members to sit on this working group. It is a closed meeting. No one's allowed. Mr. Dario asked to be allowed to attend it. He was refused. They don't keep minutes. They don't keep a recording. They don't allow anybody to oppose each other. They only want people to agree with each other. And I'm saying that this is a policy body because the Arts Commission initiated it when they approved Kate Faust's working plan, because the working plan included the creation of the working group.
Thanks, Mr. Clark. At one point in your answer, you said that they don't keep minutes and they don't keep a recording. Do you know this from filing a request for said minutes or recording, or how do you know that
I know this because one of the members of the committee is a friend of mine, and she told me she tried to record the meetings, and she got halfway through, and they made her destroy the recording and chastised her from it. And I know that Mike tried to go on there, and they sent us an email saying this is not a public policy body, and therefore no one else is going to be allowed to attend. And I noticed under the passive meeting body of the Sunshine Task Force, even if it was a passive meeting, they would still have to allow members of the public attend those meetings upon request.
Great, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Clark? All right. It seems to me that, at least for myself and possibly my colleagues, that the definition of whether or not this is required to be a public meeting is sort of what much of this case rests on. And I think all of us feel much more confident in broaching that issue with the guidance of the city attorney who advises the Sunshine Task Force. Does anyone have any motion they'd like to make at this point, or comments before we continue moving forward on finding a motion?
Well, I don't like the idea of us just kicking it upstairs without anything. I mean, given the information that I have right now, I mean, this comes under the wish I was queen for the day again. I don't like it, but I don't see a violation with this. So if we're going to kick it upstairs to the full body, let's at least, my motion would be no violation, but let's let everybody else hear what they have to say. And
Have public comment. No motion has been made yet.
I haven't made a,
thank you
I
very
haven't
much.
finished yet. I'm still talking.
Yeah, so just for clarification, once there's a motion that's on the table before we vote, we will accept public comment, and we may withdraw that motion in that time based on the public comment.
And, you know, I've been doing this 5 years. I've been overturned many times. I have no problem with that at all. But I think we should at least make a motion, either a motion of a violation or a motion of no violation. Where are you on this, Eric?
I mean, I'm kind of stuck in the same place where I would like someone to spell out to me exactly what it means when a policy body makes a working group that they know is going to be closed, and how this has played out in the past, because I'm sure it's come up plenty of times. On its face, it's hard for me to find a violation here, just because of the nature of what everyone sort of agrees upon, and like, you know, that's where I'm stuck right now. I don't see what the case is for the violation clearly enough to make it.
So I don't feel comfortable one way or the other on a recommendation until I better understand the legal definition of whether or not this qualifies as a public meeting. Can I? And then I'll let you. Based on that, I'm not sure whether it makes sense to make a motion with no recommendation to go ahead and hold this here and ask our city attorney to weigh in and then come back to this group to make a motion with a specific recommendation. Procedurally, I'm not sure it really matters, but we can walk through that. What I am concerned about, and perhaps Mr. Clark might be interested in pursuing this in the meantime, is to whatever extent there are documents related to this working group, whether or not the public has access to those documents. And if the public doesn't have access to whatever documents may exist, that brings up significant potential for concern. Whereas right now we're in sort of this situation where everything revolves around the definition of what is necessitated to be a public meeting. So that's where I'm at right now. Does someone want to go ahead and put forward a motion at this point in time?
You're not going to like the one I have, but go ahead.
Well, I mean, I know your general stance on making motions before the full body, and we're not going to get a lawyer here to help with that problem when it comes up in the future. As a matter of how we operate, I am generally pro some sort of motion versus none, even if we have incomplete information and we can just be told we're wrong later. I would rather give them something that's based on the time we took to hear all of this and complete some processing, and then they can unwind that if they want to. So that's where I come down on this, simply because I don't want to have to drag everyone here for multiple more meetings where all of these parliamentary procedures are played out.
Right. I mean, I think that although our chair may not think this is the best approach for this forum, that once we've unpacked it, if there's a question that hinges on which direction our recommendation should be and we can't answer that moving forward with no recommendation pending legal advice is a sensible way to go, but I'm happy to, let whoever make the motion and let the votes fall where they may.
Well, if I may talk this out you all for one more minute. Basically, what if we made a motion that's based on what we know, we don't see a violation, but we're asking the lawyers, by the time it gets to the full task force, the city lawyer can have their findings, and then we can say, this is what we found based on the snapshot in time that we had, and here's what the lawyer said afterwards. The full body can discuss and decide.
My question to you, Victor. So can we do that? Can we make a motion that this body sees no violation, but requests that DCA COLA look into it before our next full board meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
It's pretty standard, right?
Yeah.
So is there a motion then?
Okay, I'll go with that. I'd like to make a motion that this body does not at the current time see a violation, but we would like it to be reviewed by DCA COLA or whomever our DCA may be at that time before the next full meeting. That make sense? Anything you want to change there?
I'd like to ask, is it going to is this a referral to the full task force?
Oh, yeah, we've done everything.
Well, everything we do on this will be a referral
Yes, I just wanted to be sure.
Yes.
And all I ask is that you provide specific questions that you want to provide to the city attorney for him to respond to.
In the motion or after this meeting or?
It would be preferable that it be done
Right now.
maybe not in the motion, but that you provide those questions so I can forward them.
Right. Okay. Did he give us any?
I think these meet exactly what I see.
Yeah. So the questions we would have is this CWG a policy body under 67.3D?
I'm pretty much sure that he's going to say it's your determination to make. But.
Or, really? It's not black and white? Okay. Okay,
Well,
then how
the
about,
policy
okay, I have
question-
another question. Maybe the DCA COLA could give us a little more explanation of what is defined as a passive policy body. Because I've read and read and read, but I didn't go to law school.
Or
I got in, but I didn't go. Yes.
we're not still making the motion, are we?
It hasn't been seconded, so it's...
Seconded, so-
Okay. I mean, the main question is like when a policy body creates a working group and the working group has meetings and it's not set up to be open, what should be open anyway? I'm sure this has come up hundreds or thousands of times.
Tens of times,
I'm sure
I'm
he
sure.
can provide examples of how this has come down in the past. Those would be super helpful for us. So examples of other city agent policy making bodies that have had this, SOTF cases that have come up, how we've decided upon them. Any of that would be helpful because if there is a gray area, which it sounds like it quite possibly could be, it'd be great to be consistent with how we have.
Right, or maybe there's no gray area, maybe it's black and white, and the three of us are sitting here without all of the proper knowledge. I remember this coming up a couple of years ago, but I don't remember the answer.
The motion is to make a recommendation to refer the matter to the full task force with the recommendation to find no violation and to request that the Deputy City Attorney Cola answer questions regarding the definition of a passive meeting body and to provide samples of policy bodies setting up additional commissions and questioning whether or not it should be open or not.
Can we actually make that, should the community working group be defined as either a passive policy body or a policy body?
Should it be defined?
Is that fine with you?
I can live with that.
Great. Just adding both of those two possibilities. Is there a second?
I will second the motion. I would like to have one more meeting where we can all talk about this in front of the full body, and then we can have a resolution and move on, rather than having to have multiple more meetings about this.
I believe the motion is to refer to the full task force.
That's the rationale.
Public comment?
Hi, Robert Clark. I'd just like to remind you that the first thing out of this representative of the Art Commission's mouth was that the working group is an advisory board. You can play back your tape. She said it. The working group is an advisory board. And Section 67.3, subsection D, subsection 4, it says any advisory board, this is what's saying what a policy body shall mean. Any advisory board, that's what she just said it was, commission, committee, or body created by the initiative of a public body. Now, the Arts Commission created this board. The Arts Commission is a public body. Policy body, so therefore this board, which he said is an advisory board, is a policy body. I just want to quote Ang Dang Shang's words that she said about what's been happening at these meetings. So far, since the last time we've met, I've had 3 meetings with the Street Arts Community Working Group. We have discussed issues of monitoring, quality issues. We have discussed the screening schedule, strategies to maintain relationships with our community partners, and also strategies to promote the program in the working group. And the working group has recommended to us that they see to improve that they seek to improve the process of monitoring and quality control. They are proposing that we have a pre-screening process, so when others apply for a license, that they send in pictures of products and pictures of products being made, receipts, and also websites where the supplies are being brought so that the staff can review all of that before the screening. They suggest a shorter time frame between rescreening and hearing in cases of program rules violations, because right now it is taking a long time, and And so sometimes it is very difficult to provide evidence and proof. They also suggest that staff document particular evidence of works that are in violation of program rules, which should make it a lot easier for the rescreening and the hearing to take place, and that staff visits arts and crafts outlets in order to make sure that the products sold through the program are not accessible through other sources. And then lastly, they suggest that the screening committee and staff focus on workmanship, doing both the screening and the rescreening, because that is an important part of quality control. Regarding screening schedule, we have a recommendation to switch to quarterly screening due to low demand and to avoid deficits due to low number of artists being screened every month. So I am going to report back on these recommendations to staff and to the office, and then we are going to work on a strategy to see how we can implement the recommendations. Now, all I'm saying is that's obviously giving our commission advice. Obviously, it's a policy body because it was created by the R Commission that's giving it advice. And, all I can say is that we are very upset about this because what's coming through this committee right now are rules and regulations that are violating the will of the people. They're implementing policies and conditions that directly go against the vote of the will of the people. And so we're very upset, not only that the fact that street artists are being told they cannot be part of this working group unless they agree not to argue, not to disagree, but Sir, go ahead.
Okay, so I appreciate what you're saying. I think, when I look at what you're saying and then when I'm looking at the ordinance, it looks like the definition of advisory falls into 67.4, which is passive meetings, which does not include all of the things that you're hoping to receive here. I can't provide you advice here, but
what about subsection D, which says policy body shall mean, and then section 4 right below it, it says any advisory board, commission, committee, or body created by the initiative of both policy body. That's not talking about a passive board. Anyway, I'm not going to...
Advisory boards are generally classified under passive meetings, which is why this is complicated for us and why we need to talk to the city attorney. So, I hear what you're saying.
Right.
The chair of this subcommittee basically recommended already. It sounds like the request you've made is for a very specific thing, whereas your complaint is of a more general nature about this body, and so we would invite you to use the general means available to pursue that.
No, the whole thing about that is that this is a policy body. They are giving advice to the Art Commission. They are taking that advice and acting on it. And in the process, their selection of street arts was very limited. And so, but I'll go into that in the future under the next meeting. I just want to say...
Just observing that the Sunshine Ordinance, even if this is considered a passive meeting, it does provide means for someone who's interested in what's going on, like you, to get that.
No, I understand that. I understand that. So I know they're dead ducks either way. There's no doubt about it.
So this is quickly becoming convoluted. Firstly, there was not an open call out to all street artists. That is another fabrication. I wouldn't take face value anything the Arts Commission says. That's my general opinion. But by definition, this is a passive meeting body. I think it created a lot of dissension in the ranks of street artists because they weren't told. Nothing was explained to them. I actually listened to an audio tape somebody made at one of these focus group meetings. It was in his pocket. And he did it not knowing whether he was going to get caught or what was going to happen, and he was actually afraid. So I think it's a lot of misinformation that's being spouted out all over the place. People, street artists, I'm sure they would like to know what's going on in these focus group meetings, and it would be good practice to publish, some abbreviated version of the minutes that go out to 240 people just so they know what's going on, but they're not required to. And as far as this being an advisory committee under the charter, it's not. And I've gone through probably 3 years of full commission meeting minutes, and I have never seen. I've seen talk of this focus group study, but there was never a resolution that was put on the floor and passed that they would establish this committee. So it is a passive meeting body. Sorry to say. My understanding is that people were angry. They wanted to go up there. They were afraid they were going to get arrested, that sort of thing. And you can understand when people's livelihoods are at stake, they want information. But this does not qualify.
I'm Bob Planthold. For the benefit of some of the larger public in the record, I spent about 7.5 years on the task force. The motion you're suggesting is prejudicial to the complaint, partly because during all of your discussions here, you did not address, seize upon, focus on various of the statements made by Arts Commission staff, which should have raised red flags. The first person from Arts Commission who talked mentioned that, well, it's not a policy body, and it was set up by this one person who's now on family leave. That, in effect, it wasn't set up by the Arts Commission. So, the text says a department head or a policy body can set up something. You don't know, you didn't ask, you may need to verify. By what authority did the woman who's on family leave set this up? Where did that come from? Because the Arts Commission staff also referred to this as a staff group, yet they're not all Arts Commission staff. So there's a factual error, there's a lack of authority. Further, in some of the public comment earlier, you heard a person say that one person already on this working group was forced to destroy her tape. Now, there had been yet no adjudication, no decision by this body, no opinion by the city attorney that it wasn't an open meeting, that it wasn't a passive meeting body. By what authority could this tape have been destroyed, lacking any substantive basis to say, you people inside can't record? I'm going to go further. People can record a meeting for their own memory purposes. There could even be an ADA basis for somebody who has difficulty concentrating and tapes this. So there's various material that was said by the staff that you didn't question, you didn't say, wait a minute, and by this focus of no violation, you're prejudicial to the complaint without looking at the staff. Now, I see a hand of one of the members raised. Mr. Chair, I don't know how you handle that within the time allotted to me.
Go ahead and finish what you have to say, and then we'll take his question as additional time.
So I'm suggesting this motion is, because prejudicial, you ought to withdraw it, go further asking questions, not just an open-ended question to your assigned city attorney. Be more specific. By what authority was this set up? Find out, did this person who's away on leave, and when's this person going to come back? Because that person may be the authority. You need to ask also, why did this tape of a member of this working group get destroyed? What's their basis? That's substantive, because if it's not ruled, it's not a passive meeting body, then potentially it could be.
Member Eldon, you had a question?
I think you raised a good point about how it was set up. It's essentially, to me, a subset of what we're asking the city attorney anyway. We need to establish how this was created, and so, that's certainly what needs to be answered before we can decide upon anything. In terms of what one of the people who spoke said about the tape being destroyed, it's very challenging for us to try to investigate and adjudicate such specific matters when there's no violation that they're tied to, right? If somebody requested a tape and it wasn't provided, that would be interesting if this is indeed a passive meeting. But in terms of hearing third hand about an incident that may or may not have happened the way it was explained, and then trying to investigate that from where we are right now, I don't see how that's possible. So I think it's a fair question.
It's not so much the destruction of the tape, it's the fact that they felt they had an authority to do
we
it
don't even know
without
what the
knowing
facts
that
are.
they're not.
We don't know what the facts are. So, I mean, if we're going to be prejudiced, we can't assume anything is true if it's not based in the law. It's just anecdotal evidence right now. So I don't find that very powerful versus but I think it's entirely reasonable, and I think we're on the same page about trying to figure out exactly how this is created and what the implications are there. So I appreciate what you're saying. That's where we're stuck. In terms of how we proceed, I mean, the way just to address your question, sir, is the way we're trying to set ourselves up right now is to move through these subcommittees and process them so that we can give the full body some information to work off of. If we don't provide anything, then we just restart the cycle every time we go up to the full body. So that is the major issue. I mean, I think the nature of the process of providing a recommendation will create a bias, but otherwise we have no purpose being here. So I don't think it's
I'm not really sure this is my place to respond to you right now, but I do think that by unpacking it, whether or not we go in with a specific recommendation, we're still serving a purpose. We are unpacking and we are able to summarize the case at the next meeting with or without a recommendation much more than we would if this weren't taking place right now. But we can.
Okay, I seconded the motion because I thought it was my job to get some sort of thing up to the full body. I mean,
Do you need me to stand up here anymore?
You don't need to. Sorry, sir.
Yeah.
I mean, I can be convinced to withdraw it if we're going to have the same conversation regardless.
Should we hear the rest of the public comment before we make a motion on the motion?
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Mike Adario. I'm a street artist. I was the chairman of the liaison committee. I'd like to also say that starting out, the Street Arts program is a 45-year-old. It's coming up on its 45-year anniversary. And if you don't know the history about it, it's hard to see this in context. One of the things that I should bring out is Bill Clark is the one who wrote Proposition J, who was the first street artist ordinance, first street artist proposition that passed. So he's been doing this for 45 years. He's been in and out of the program. At one time he couldn't get a license, but because they put a limit on it. But he's been here for 45 years. He knows the street arts program better than anybody. I was the chairman of the liaison committee. First, we had a lot of problems with the staff of the Arts Commission. The street arts pay the Arts Commission their salaries. We pay them. They give us very little. Just recently, the budget went over where we couldn't pay it, and they get some from the general fund. But we pay $738 a year for a license. That's more than a doctor. That's $500 for a doctor. That's more than a lawyer. That's more than a gun dealer. We pay a lot of money to the Arts Commission for these licenses. It is terribly managed. And the civil grand jury said this. They said their reputation has been tarnished, right? Then they also had an audit where money went to all different places where they shouldn't have went to. They also recently had Harvey Rose, very critical audit of them because they moved 3 blocks and spent $1 million on $1,000 chairs, right, and other things. I mean, it just goes on and on. And I'd like to say that there was no agenda on these meetings. They didn't ask anybody that was critical of the program to be in it. They didn't ask Bill, they didn't ask me, they didn't ask Bob. And Kate Faust. Kate Faust has no background in art. She has no background. She was doing her dissertation. They paid her $18,000 to do this dissertation, right? There were no minutes, there were no voting. And these were closed meetings with artists that they picked. And some of these artists have credibility problems. but they go along with the Arts Commission. So I would say they're definitely trying to hide something. I believe there's a violation, and I would ask you to at least kick it up to the next step with a violation. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Seeing none, does anyone, it seems like our second was possibly wanting to revisit his second.
I mean, so everyone, here's the problem I'm stuck on is the evidence is like hard for me to see what the violation is on its face. It sounds like the way they did business could have resulted in lots of other violations, but that's not what we are considering
that's not sunshine.
today.
Yeah.
Like, there are no sunshine requests for all of the minutes and things. I mean, all of the other things that they're talking about that they should be able to get. So if they're filing sunshine requests for those and not getting them, and we know this is a passive meeting, that seems pretty clear. I mean, it's going to be the same conversation either way in the full board. I think this is a formality right now.
I mean, I think it is going to be the same conversation before the full board. I am somewhat sympathetic to Plantold's concerns that we are biasing the full board based on how we frame that recommendation.
But I think that's partially his interpretation of how Chair Wolf has instructed us to run these subcommittees. And the way we're supposed to run these subcommittees is to process and give recommendations. So it's like if it's 51% and we have to make a decision, that's something that I think...
Right, I still fall back on I need to know what the city attorney says before I can say whether it's 51% one way or the other way, though. So we can go ahead and have the vote.
We're going to get the attorney here, so you're never going to be able to say, so you're not going to be able to follow the directions of the chair.
That's not true because some of these cases don't have legal ambiguities that I can't navigate myself.
Yeah, but I think a lot of them do.
I mean,
it's not even just ambiguity. It's what is the city attorney's office interpretation of this, whether or not it's the legal interpretation.
Certainly. I mean, my last issue was that neither party or that the other party was here. It wasn't the lack of the city attorney. But should we go ahead and move forward with your vote?
Yeah.
All right.
On the motion,
Aye.
Eldon, aye. Member Fisher.
Aye.
Fisher, aye. Chair Wolf.
No.
Wolf, no. The motion passes. The parties, I assume that we're going to, in terms of scheduling before the full task force, the next meeting was this coming May 3rd, but I don't believe that would be enough time for the city attorney to produce his write-up and recommendation. So I would suggest that we refer to the full task force for their June 7th meeting.
Sure. And can we verify with the Arts Commission that they can get answers to those questions by the June meeting?
Yes. Yeah, we'll provide you with a step-by-step of how the committee was proposed.
Can you come up to the microphone, please?
Sure, we'll provide you what I was saying. We'll provide you with a step-by-step of how the committee was composed, when it was composed, if we have any other documents related to agendas that were set for those meetings. We're happy to provide all of that so you get a sense of the work that was done there. Mr. Clark read an email from my colleague on Tang Dao Shah, who is on family leave. But as you can see, that we have provided summaries when requested about the discussions at those meetings, so we can provide samples of that as well.
And it does seem like your colleague is the best person to speak to this, as she was the one involved in actually putting the group together. Do you happen to know whether she will be?
She won't be back
by then.
No,
okay,
no.
Great, thank you.
No, I think that we'll be able to gather the information, and we'll be just fine representing her position.
Thank you. All right.
I just wanted to see if the Clarks, Mr. Clark, would be available for the June 7th meeting.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I have that evidence I want to present to you.
Yes, I will take that now.
Okay. I just wrote on there that.
I'll put it in the file.
Thanks a lot.
Moving on to the next item. Item number 6, file number 17006, hearing development of support and training for policy and advisory bodies regarding procedures for posting agendas, minutes, and the disconnect between the clerk who generates agendas and the webmaster who posts the agenda. I was wondering if the committee would like me to read both items for a joint meeting with item number 7, which is similar but not, it's related to training.
Sure. Does anyone have any objections to that?
Item 7, is
Yes.
that a working link? Because
No, there's no.
There's no attachments to it.
okay.
Item
Go
number
ahead.
7, file number 17030, hearing, development of sunshine training program for boards and commissions.
So there's no documentation for that?
No. I believe as a result of 2 complaints filed by Mr. Planthold, this hearing file was created. I believe there was a department who had issues with posting the agenda and getting it posted online due to issues with the webmasters. And with the agreement of the complainant, we closed those files and created this hearing file.
Great. So technically, I guess the way this works is that Mr. Plantold, you're no longer explicitly a party to the item, but why don't we kick things off by giving you 3 minutes to tell us what you think is important to address in this item.
So I'll speak 3 minutes on the first item.
Sure.
This started when there was to be a hearing by the MTA Board of Directors about some changes to the permits and authorization for commuter shuttles, whether or not to use muni bus stops. And as of 25 hours before the meeting that started at 1 o'clock on a Tuesday, no document had been posted. The agenda said something, and the agenda said, a slide and PowerPoint presentation when available. The reason I filed the complaint was the agenda was posted 72 hours in advance, but the material was unknown to the public until 25 hours before. So we didn't know whether there was going to be an expansion of the number of permits, the numbers of muni bus stops that might be co-used, a reduction, a change in the fines, any changes in any number of ways. The public had no way to know and therefore have time to do the analysis. Now, what's significant also is this PowerPoint would have had to have been based on a paper document, some memos. The MTA Board of Directors gets their packets standardly a week in advance of a meeting. So the question of why was nothing available to the public if the Board of Directors would have had some information? I'm saying that because I don't know, but I find it hard that the MTA Board of Directors would have also had to rely solely on the PowerPoint that came out Monday afternoon, 25 hours before the start of their meeting. I find that hard to believe. There have been another instance with the same agency where a PowerPoint and material was presented by the staff person to IT department shortly before 5 o'clock on a Friday. And the person who developed it thought, I did my job. Well, IT is not 24-hour machines. So it sat. And therefore, through a weekend, the document was not posted. It was complete but not posted. And here again, there's a disconnect in instructions within agencies about a timeline to be sure that a document gets posted adequately for the public to know. I understand from the wording of the ordinance, only the agenda needs to be posted 72 hours in advance. I'm suggesting maybe there could be a change in the ordinance, but at least there ought to be a change in the training that staff know when you're relying upon a document that's going to provide facts, figures, numbers, data, recommendations. The public ought to have more than 25 hours notice that this should have been prepared and posted on that Friday so that people would have time to talk to each other, do their own research. So that was the basis for why I filed the complaint, knowing likely it would fail, but trying to raise the point, we, the public, are underinformed.
Great. So There's no one to confirm or answer this, so I'm just going to put it towards you to possibly correct or affirm the record. Our material says that, and maybe this came up at the meeting, that item wasn't actually heard in the committee, that when they didn't receive the materials by that time, that item was removed from the agenda. Is that inaccurate, or?
It is inaccurate.
Okay.
Now, I want to be clear. You're talking about heard by a committee. The MTA Board of Directors has committees, and potentially what you're reading may have been a reference to a committee of the MTA Board of Directors. But in fact, that Tuesday meeting did deal with it because there was news stories about it. And this is the first I've heard that supposedly the item was deferred to a later meeting of the MTA Board of Directors. Even during the complaint hearing, when the secretary of the Board of Directors of the MTA Board of Directors, Roberta Boomer, when she came up and spoke, she did not say it was delayed.
I'm trying to dig up and find the exact.
In addition, nobody told me from MTA, oops, sorry, wow, we're going to not do this. So as somebody who complained, I would have thought courtesy and or prudence might have indicated, though not necessity of law, might have indicated they'll let me know they're going to delay this, because people did show up to listen.
Yeah, I'm not seeing that now. I imagined it. I have no idea.
While you're researching, are there questions of your colleagues that may be helpful to raise and pursue while you're doing the research?
Wait, here we are. Lois Liss. Louis Liss, San Francisco Municipal Transit Agency, the respondent, acknowledged that there was a failure to post the agenda 72 hours prior to the meeting.
That's a different agenda topic that's not relevant. It's not relating to the commuter shuttle program. What Mr. Liss was talking about was a complaint against the Pedestrian Safety Task Force.
I see. So there's two things we're talking about here.
Right. And again, same agency, similar flub-ups, let's say. But the PowerPoint on the commuter shuttle was not ready until 25 hours before. And again, I'll admit, the wording of the law says agenda. It doesn't say supporting documents or staff memos. But here again, the MTA Board of Directors gets all their material well in advance. Why couldn't we have been given something?
Well, I mean, I think that's the other important point that needs to be unpacked, which is that do we know for a fact that the Board of Directors received this PowerPoint before the public was able to obtain it? Because if what happened, hear me out, if what happened was that the PowerPoint wasn't prepared in ample time and neither the public nor the Board of Directors had a chance to see it until 24 hours before, I think that's bad governance, bad business. But it seems like it's not being irresponsible to the public so much as irresponsible to governance on the whole.
It can be that, but that's why I said PowerPoints are based on some documents, some reports, some analysis, some data charts. They're not independent on their own. They have a wellspring in something preceding it. That type of material would have been provided to the Board of Directors. Why couldn't it have been provided to the public in the absence of a timely posting of the PowerPoint?
Well, see, that's the part that I'm not certain of, and unfortunately we don't have someone to ask. But when it comes to, at least for, I can only speak for the Sunshine Task Force, but when it comes to the materials prepared for meetings, Victor just sends us a link to what's already available online. So we are constantly at the exact same level of accessibility as the public. And so I'm not sure whether this department's board is functioning in the same way or whether they were able to. Now, obviously, they may have been able to call and get those numbers, but if they didn't call and get those numbers, were they actively provided them? I don't have that information in front of me.
Neither do I, but the fact that this information was not available to the public, I'm suggesting warrants consideration of some approach towards a better, more timely response to getting information to the public. That maybe agencies need to be told, as happened with the other complaint of Mr. Liss, that you need to get stuff to your IT people in advance, in time to get posted for the public to read. That the suggestion there needs to be something in terms of the second item, training, education of staff, that it isn't just a matter of, oh, well, they didn't get the PowerPoint until 25 hours before, and let that go. I think that, plus the other instance we're citing here, indicates a need to make departments and agencies aware that there's got to be some training of more staff than just the secretary of a board of directors or the chair of a board of directors or the executive director of an agency. There's got to be more training about production of materials for the public, that it permeates the system of that department, of that agency. That's what I'm looking for consideration of.
Sir, I'd like to dip in and say I agree with what your goals are here.
I'm sorry, what?
We agree with what your goal. I agree with what your goals are here. I'd love to help. This is one of the things we're supposed to be helping with in this committee, so I think you've come to that.
And again,
place.
maybe it's just setting up suggestions for training.
Well, we've kind of had a running conversation around this stuff, it's like the thing we talk about at the end of every full body meeting.
I know when Ms. Washburn was chair, she was talking about this.
Like, part of the problem is that it's like such a hairball of like how do you communicate it to everyone, that everyone gets trapped in like the million details. Is there like a really simple sort of like, I'm just trying to think of like, how do you cut the Gordian knot here, right? Like,
so I will just say the city attorney provides a mandatory training on ethics and good government, including sunshine, and it is online, as well as they give live performances, if you will.
Yeah, we have to take that.
A lot of us do, because I had to oversee, when I chaired Ethics Commission, I had to oversee that version years ago. Mm-hmm. My point is, so here's something that is readily available to the public as well. They can go online to look at it. That type of training could be where there could be a recommendation of a better approach to timeliness and more thorough responsiveness. Not all city employees have to take that training, but they could be offered the opportunity by being told, oh, here's this training that may interest you for better communication. I'm trying to hedge this so as to not have requirements, but to make information available that may induce somebody, or that a very efficient secretary of a board of directors could start telling the communications department, you make sure you get this stuff done.
So it seems like there's both the actual language of what you're recommending, and then the implementation of it, which could be through the Sunshine training module that exists to all employees. Conceivably, we could somehow intersect with the Good Government Guide to either improve it or make our own version or something. Not really putting any motion towards that, just dancing around the edges of that. In terms of the actual language, in vague terms on this particular item, it sounds like we're saying that, or you're recommending that we put forward some sort of recommendation that all documentation, including supplementary materials, should be made available at the 72-hour mark, whether or not it's mandated by the law or not. Am I missing part of what you're recommending here?
You're using the word mandate, and that triggers to my mind an amendment, and I don't know that you can or should suggest amendments. I don't know that's within your purview yet. There are advocates who are talking about that, okay? But I will say that if the Sunshine Task Force has not been asked to review any of the training materials on sunshine or the materials in the Good Government Guide relating to sunshine, I'm going to suggest you have a duty as a body to get involved. I butted in when I was chair of ethics to make sure that we got to see what the city attorney had drafted about our duties, that we understood that's what they were telling city employees and the public, and that we agreed with it. Your phrasing, Mr. Wolf, a little bit ago made it seem maybe the task force hasn't been involved in monitoring or suggesting material for the sunshine training or the Good Government Guide. And again, I'm not asking for your experience now. I'm just suggesting task force needs to be involved in this. I won't say mandate, and I'm not sure even 72 hours. It might have to be some sort of phrase like well enough in advance for people to read, understand, be able to research. When it comes to budget matters or money numbers like fines, when it comes to numbers of bus stops that can be co-used, number of permits for this commuter shelter, that type of thing where there's data. And again, was it going to be an expansion into other parts of the city? We didn't know until 25 hours before. And that's where I'm suggesting there needs to be information that a public body like the Board of Directors relies upon in making their decision. That has to be available to the public for us to scrutinize. I don't know that you can say 72 hours. That's what I'm suggesting, maybe well enough in advance for the public to read and be able to do their own research or query.
Well, there is this issue that the agendas are required to be posted 72 hours in advance, and traditionally the additional documentation is put there. So if
available.
Right, but here's the thing: is that if you're in the habit of following that particular board or government, you may be looking every they post the agenda Thursday afternoon, so every Thursday afternoon you check it, and you wouldn't know on Friday afternoon that this new document was posted necessarily. And so unless you confine things to that 72-hour window, it really puts the onus on the public to even be aware that a new document was added.
I'm trying to anticipate pushback from, I will say it, the city attorney, as well as various departments. If you say materials that a policy body relies upon to make their decisions must also be posted 72 hours in advance, I don't know that you can require that.
Right. I don't think we have the ability to use the word must, but I think we have the ability to put forward statements like, in order for the public to be able to review material ahead of time, it is the best practice to things like that.
And here again, I wouldn't use a superlative like best. You could just say it can be an advisable practice.
Sure, we can.
Okay,
we can play gymnastics over the words.
Red flags.
Yeah, or you could even submit a recommended phrasing and writing for us to consider.
And just to let you know, the task force has suggested to the public library that they should make that effort to post the supporting documents 72 hours before the meeting, or consider removing the item from the agenda.
And Victor, can you, for future meetings, pull the language that was used to the public, to the library, so that we can potentially just stay consistent with what we've said in the past then?
Yes, I will attempt to, if it is written.
What Mr. Young is referring to is the paper documents. That's all that the public library gets. The posting online is the responsibility of the department itself. Or if they don't have if not big enough to have their own IT department, that goes to the city IT department, which is another link in the chain of time and responsibility.
Right. I'm just saying that if we've already created language to this effect, rather than run the risk of contradicting ourselves, we should start with that language.
New to me, and I'm glad to hear of it. Thank you.
And in regard to this, maybe as a shortcut, we can maybe state that the department should ensure that the matter is online and not even mention the webmaster. Because some people do it themselves, some use the webmaster.
Right.
They should just say, it should ensure that it gets there instead of trying to get into the detail.
I mean, the whomever is responsible for ensuring that it is online by 72 hours ahead of time is sort of.
And this is where I'm going to suggest it may be that you go a little bit further, that a department makes sure that materials to be posted get to the proper posting person well enough in advance for that person to actually get it posted. In case there's a glitch, a problem, that the IT webmaster guru can get back and say, whoops, this is hinky here. You know, just to say posted 72 hours in advance, I'm suggesting departments can benefit from a little bit of pushing. Make sure you get it there far enough in advance that the people who handle posting on the website have time to scrutinize and get it posted.
Sure. I think we have to be careful about not overstepping our role, but I think that this committee is very much receptive and in favor of implementing such suggestion, and we've kind of already started to do so with the library.
And see, that could be part of the training aspect, the second item, that you suggest that a department consider getting it to the proper posting authorities well enough in advance. That could be part of a training program for board and commission and department heads. That's not on here, but I would think that's important that a department head also get that type of training or urging.
Great. So is there anything else on item 6? Because it sounds like we have 2 items here.
They're very similar. That's why I called them both at the same time.
Right, but it seemed like Mr. Planold had a separate 3-minute statement to make as well. So are we, as a committee, ready to move on to the second part of this? Seeing no objection?
Tell him.
Well, did you have anything else to
On
add
6, no, but
Okay.
Then let's go ahead and give you 3 more minutes.
So on 7, I'm not sure what, if any, training the boards and commissions and departments that have specifically to sunshine and sharing of materials. And that, to me, is critical. And it goes further than that. When, let's say, the head of a department is away, the deputy takes over. What is the deputy given that same training? When the secretary of a board or commission is away, there sometimes is somebody who's sent in as a substitute and handle that meeting. So how pervasive through an agency is the training, rather than just being the board, the staff head, and the secretary of the commission? I'm suggesting there ought to be consideration that the people who sub in, the deputies, the alternates, need definitely to be part of this training. And that may be a department by department analysis. I don't know that it could be part of the ordinance, but here again, as part of the training, they ought to be asked to consider a lot more people than just the few that are in the secretary, board, or department head slot. And in addition, I'm going to suggest that because this also can relate to budgets, which is both staffing levels and dollar expenditures and so forth, that maybe the financial people, the CFO of an agency, ought to be aware of this so the CFO can understand the need for timeliness and for thoroughness in posting information. I want to try to broaden the training so that various people who provide significant information to the staff and to the board or commission, that more people are aware of the need for wider responsiveness to the public. And I mentioned MTA, but I mean, Public Works is a multi-million-dollar city agency. Public Health Department is a multi-million-dollar public health agency. The Sheriff's Department, the Police Department, so that there's a lot of agencies that handle a lot of money, a lot of staff, a lot of physical facilities, buying of stuff, planning new stuff. That's why I'm suggesting this ought to be considered as a larger educational expansion beyond just the few. And I don't expect you to have an answer. I'm trying to stimulate thought at this point.
Do my colleagues have any thoughts on this?
You have a lot more experience than us.
I've been on 4 grand juries, so I've looked into a lot of city departments.
And you've
Like
been on ethics.
Mr. Planhold actually volunteers for jury duty as opposed to trying to get out of it.
So, like, the more, like, specific guidance you provide on this stuff, the more helpful it is for us because, like, you know, when we're trying to, like, you know, rephrase what you're saying, you're like, nope, that's not what I meant, and that's not what I meant. So just tell us exactly what you mean, what you think should be in there. We have some pros on the full committee as well who can help think about this. And here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to make sure this merges with our other efforts so that we're not, on the one hand, having this whole other conversation and then having this separate conversation with you when we're talking about the same things.
So I'd not planned to write up anything. What I will ask is, when you talk about separate or other activities, I'm unaware, so if I could be sent that file or link of whatever else you're pursuing, not just the library referral, but some other things that you think, Chair Wolf or Clerk Young, that you think pertain to what I'm talking about. That gives me better background so I know both what you're already thinking of. If you're uncomfortable.
There's not like a definitive draft that we would send to you.
No.
It's basically at the end of task force meetings, we talk about how to try to improve things.
Well, if you send me the broad stuff at the end.
There is no documentation. That's what this meeting is intended to do, is to actually start creating some of these documentations and creating suggestions.
Okay.
If you actually do write something up and give it to us, that could actually be a pillar of that documentation. I hate to say it, but like.
But biting into this from the other angle, why not make the sunshine training required or put forward or recommended for everyone, not just deputies of the people that might be responsible? Because at the end of the day, any city employee can receive a sunshine request. I can walk up to the groundskeeper with a piece of paper and be like, here's my sunshine request. And if he hasn't been trained in the fact that he can receive sunshine requests, he's going to be really confused why someone just handed him a letter and without training, not know who to hand it to.
Ideally, I would like that. I will tell you now some of my recent experience with some other of my advocacy colleagues, why that's become difficult. There is a group called Friends of Ethics, of which I am a member, who floated different ethics ballot measures or fought different ethics ballot measures and been widely successful. There is currently a draft of a whistleblower reform that would provide more oomph to the whistleblower ordinance. We said we want every employee to be trained in it, not just a supervisor, not county, an office supervisor, because the employees themselves need to know this. DHR, Department of Human Resources, is pushing back. And the draft that they got sent to the Ethics Commission totally omitted that type of mandatory training. So there's already an example of what you're suggesting. We're suggesting it a different way, and we're so far blocked or getting nowhere. That doesn't mean we stop. But I'm trying to tell you, it ain't going to be easy. There's a second reason I'm going to suggest there could be difficulty when you say everybody. Well, suddenly that's staff time for people to sit down at a computer, log in, read through. Not everybody reads at a good, fast pace. Some people may have difficulty with some of the wording, so they may go slower because they got to look up some words or some concepts. So that's lost staff time from a manager's viewpoint, if you're trying to get these people to do their job, and they got to take 2 hours or 3 or 4 even for something else, then suddenly that job gets delayed. I'm trying to give you an idea of what type of argument we might encounter, because you cannot mandate somebody take a training outside of their workday on their
Absolutely
own.
not.
Okay.
I understand your arguments, but it sounds like they don't sway you and they don't sway me either. So
No, I just want you to be aware it's already been being fought out there for another ordinance from another department. So be ready to push or whatever else you feel you can do. I agree. Employees ought to know that they've got to respond to the public. Period.
Great. Thank you.
Okay?
Any other questions for Mr. Poindle?
So this is a potentially big task. Just to be sure I send something carefully worded. I'm going to ask Clerk Young, what is an approximate good timeline that you would like for me to send something? If the task force next meets in June, would this subcommittee want to have the task force consider this concept at the June meeting?
It's up to this committee, but I believe part of the goal of this item was to actually create the training also. And I believe what our discussion so far has been to who and how to train. But I believe the task force this committee actually needs to create a training program before we can really move on to the next steps.
That's a longer task.
I'm not sure.
I think the training program was more us advising
Well,
the city on what their training program should be,
Well,
not
there have
us
been
doing our own, right?
several requests from various boards commission asking members of this task force to come by and give them a brief training on on the Sunshine Ordinance. And since we do not have anything prepared to give them, we usually do not respond and we do not attend and provide training. And I believe part of the purpose was to create something that we could present to these various boards and commissions. And the other part of it was to create trainings for commissioners, how to run meetings, how to prepare for meetings.
So it seems like having a commission or a task force or a body such as ours develop an actual training is not really well designed within the way that the entity exists. I guess someone could create a training and then it could be approved by the committee. But does anyone? Well, that's sort of the thing, is that there's a significant amount of time involved in creating a training and then refining it. And I don't know whether there's the wherewithal to actually get a volunteer commission task force type entity to have someone bottom line that.
Can you start with the Good Government Guide and see what it says so that you've got a basis to say, I like that, I don't understand that, I think that's weak. Start with something already out there that's available to the public and city employees. And if there's a separate sunshine training, start with that before trying to then go further to see what you don't like, what you want to amplify.
Right, I think that's a great suggestion, and there is a separate sunshine training of some sort that like we should probably take a look at and see what we would like to change on that. But this idea of actually creating our own training module to supplement that or instead of that seems like probably not necessarily something this subcommittee is ready to be responsible for.
I'm not suggesting that. I'm just.
Yeah, I don't know how to.
Your
solve.
clerk brought that up as a possibility of this item, and
yeah, everyone wants the training to exist. I don't think any of us have the time and focus to create it.
So get back. So
But
If
I do think what you are saying as like, instead of like we have to boil the ocean or nothing, like what you are proposing is simple and straightforward, and that could be a nice starting place before we have the full training materials available to everyone.
So if I write up something, would it be helpful if I got it to the clerk by May 20th or so, a month from now?
I can't imagine that would be a problem, right, Victor? I mean, in terms of including in the agenda.
Well, that would not be a problem, but I do not know where the committee is, what the committee's idea is at this time.
Wait, are we talking about looking at it in this committee in June, or are we talking about the full task force in June?
I wasn't sure where this item is going to go from here, whether it's going to stay with you for another while, or whether it's going to go to the task force for a larger discussion and then come back to this group.
It probably would make the most sense to have it be for you to submit it for this committee's next meeting, which would be 2 months from now.
Okay.
And then
So then
that would be right before the June meeting or right after the June meeting, right? That would be.
Give me a moment. The next meeting of this committee will not be until mid-June, approximately the 20th of June.
So that would mean that the July meeting of the full task force, is that?
So I'm not trying to say where this should go. It's just I'm trying to figure out a timeline by when I get information to Clerk Young. At this point, if it's going to come back to this group for the June meeting, I'll try to get to Clerk Young by June 1st.
Great.
Okay?
That should be fine.
That sounds wonderful.
And then you folks go from there. I'm going to ask you to consider letting me know of the agenda for the June meeting of this committee. If you're going to bring this item back, I'd want to know in case I have additional thoughts or you have additional questions of me.
Sure. I mean, I think we should go ahead and schedule the follow-up with your document for the next meeting of this this subcommittee, and then you would be notified. Correct, Victor?
Yes.
Great.
Okay? Thank you.
Do we need a motion on this item?
It would be to continue the matter to the next meeting. But is there any, besides the continuance, is there any direction that you are moving towards at this time, or some possible action?
I mean, I think we should make a notation of including language. I still think best case scenario is the language to look at, but essentially strive to have all supporting documents available 72 hours prior, which was sort of part of the previous item, just to memorialize that.
And is this something like you want to try to get the city attorney to look at to put into their training, or we can come up with a recommendation, but where are we going to put it or something?
Well, I don't think we figured that out yet. I just wanted to memorialize what came out of that.
The striving.
And then also the increasing who is trained on Sunshine Ordinance, whether it be all employees or all deputies of responsible parties. Does that sound good to everyone?
Sounds great.
Cool. All right. And then is there a motion to continue the item?
I'll make the motion to continue the item.
I'll second.
Second.
There are no members of the public in the room at this time.
Actually, Mr. Pointold still counts as a member of the public, even though he's been talking this whole time, because he's not a named party. I'm not saying you need to use it. I'm just saying that you should be given that opportunity. Seeing no public comment, go ahead and call the roll.
On the motion to continue the matter to the next meeting, Member Eldon.
Aye.
Eldon, aye. Member Fisher.
Aye.
Fisher, aye. Chair Wolf.
Aye.
Wolf, aye. The motion is adopted. Next on the agenda, item number 8, announcements, comments, questions, and future agenda items.
And I have this note that looks like the same item still. Consult with Bruce Wolf.
Those are my own personal notes, just possible ideas.
But isn't that still the same thing as what we've just been talking about,
Yes,
though?
it
Okay.
is.
I have nothing on that item.
If there are no comments, would someone like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Second. Meeting adjourned. Adjourned.